Every time the young man makes a delivery, he secretly visits the wealthy hostess's home. Then, he tells his intellectually disabled brother to go to the car and recite multiplication tables. The woman sees this and immediately catches the vibe.
Boys, going outside.
After the children leave, the hostess quietly leans close to the young man's ear. Unable to resist, the young man immediately meets her advance. But just as he wants to get to know the hostess better, the woman's husband suddenly comes home.
Oh my God.
He scrambled to tidy his disheveled clothes, his panicked expression looking as though he feared the man would spot a clue, yet the woman's hand movements betrayed him. So, as Gilbert prepared to leave, he was suddenly called out by the man. Gilbert's heart was inevitably flustered, but unexpectedly, the man simply smiled and took out his wallet.
Oh, no, really,
Oh, no, here. I insist. You deserve it.
However, just as he was rejoicing that he hadn't been discovered, a sudden sentence from the man made him sit on pins and needles again.
Come by my office.
Gilbert found it hard to refuse, so he could only agree. He had intended to let his brother Arnie wait in the car a while longer, only to discover that his brother was not in the vehicle. Amidst his anxiety, he saw a police car suddenly approaching from the roadside, and he also saw his brother on the water tower not far away. With just one glance, he understood why the police car had come, and in the next second, he rushed over. At this point, a crowd had gathered under the water tower, and the police were speaking softly through a megaphone. But this did not make his brother retreat. Like a child who had never grown up, he shouted that he wanted to climb higher than before. Clearly, this was not the first time Arnie had climbed up there. The bystanders watched the spectacle with nothing better to do, while Gilbert immediately raised a megaphone. They thought he would scold his brother, but instead, a melodious song came from his mouth. It was a nursery rhyme Arnie had loved since childhood. If the power of love can heal the soul, then music is the source of this power. It can drive away suffering and dispel worry. Arnie's heart calmed down, and he climbed down from the towering water tower. Subsequently, Gilbert promised the police that he would never let this happen a second time.
Every time. And then after a couple of days, he's right back up there again.
Yeah, but this is the last time, right, buddy?
It's the last time.
Gilbert doted on his brother immensely. If a kid even joked about Arnie, he would chase them away. He spent most of his time and energy on his brother, caring for him with dedication and attention, giving of himself unreservedly. And all of this was not merely because his brother suffered from an intellectual disability, but because his life could end at any moment. Doctors had once issued death notices for Arnie several times, saying his lifespan would be only 10 short years. However, life has not only length, but also thickness. It is a kind of perseverance that transcends everything, a miracle as rare as morning stars. Arnie's life was extended, and he was about to welcome his 18th birthday in the near future. Although he had dodged the gloom of fate, he still had to face the uncertainty of the future. Suffering from intellectual disability, he could not read the cruelty and ruthlessness of reality. So even if death were to truly descend tomorrow, he would not fear it, and would still live as carefree as he did today. But Gilbert was different. As Arnie's brother, he understood the cruelty of fate better than anyone, and was more unwilling than anyone to watch his brother leave. Therefore, even if the ending could not be changed, he would often recall a sentence Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, to treat every day of life as if it were the last. It's just that sometimes the weight of life was far heavier than he imagined. He was a brother, a son, and the eldest child. He was the most important part of this family. Since his father committed suicide, the burden of the family had fallen on him alone. He not only had to take care of his intellectually disabled brother, but also look after his obese mother and tolerate his sister who was in her rebellious phase. The scattered, trivial matters added up like a heavy mountain, trapping his body, locking his soul, and pressing him down in this gradually desolate small town, as if he could never walk out of it in his lifetime. Love, life, dreams, and the future, things that seem within reach for ordinary people, were as distant as the moon in the sky to him. And the family's only income came from an inconspicuous job at a grocery store. But the changing times were like an irresistible tide. The young people of the town were gradually moving away, and the grocery store's business was getting worse and worse. This forced Gilbert to ponder the future. If the grocery store were eventually swallowed by the tide of the times, where could he go? And where would the family's income come from? Amidst his worries, with an inadvertent glance, he saw a beautifully dressed girl. Her every smile moved him. Her every movement fascinated him. She was like a brilliant, bright rainbow, sprinkling upon the desolate soil of his heart after the rain cleared. Watching her walk into the grocery store, Gilbert quietly moved to the other side to peek. But just at this moment,
Need a delivery later.
Mrs. Carver was a wealthy person in the town and the only one who cared about Gilbert. But their relationship was transactional. Mrs. Carver needed the throbbing of youth to fill her lonely heart, while Gilbert needed earnest care to make up for the deficits of his own youth. Until he met that girl, everything changed. To this small town, Becky was a hurried passerby, a traveler brushing past. If her RV hadn't broken down halfway, she wouldn't have stopped in this remote town. But for Gilbert, her appearance was like a star streaking across, leaving a brilliant trail in the night sky of his hopes. She yearned for freedom, living a life of romance and ease, never confined to one corner, never obsessed with one end. And when she first arrived in the town, she happened to see Gilbert under the water tower. Watching him sing the touching nursery rhyme, watching him spoil his brother, she felt he was a gentle and sincere boy. So when checking out, she specifically asked for him to deliver her goods. At this, a smile couldn't help but surface on Gilbert's lips. The soil of his heart, where not a blade of grass grew, seemed to gradually bloom with the flowers of love at this moment. Driving that dilapidated truck, accompanied by the wind and facing the sunlight, they drove on the small road he had traveled for over a decade. Only this time, the air in the car was no longer cold. Arnie remained innocent, his joy and sorrow written on his face. He never hid his thoughts, nor did he celebrate with malice. He frankly told her about his illness and his birthday.
6 days is my part and I'm calling tea.
They drove north, laughter and cheerful voices echoing melodiously. It was unclear why, in front of the two brothers, Becky always unconsciously felt relaxed. Even when Arnie accidentally dropped groceries on the ground, she did not take her anger out on them. Ultimately, humans are very complex creatures. Some look honest but are full of lies. Some look clumsy but are true and genuine. How many roads must ordinary people walk to understand the true and false of the world? Yet Becky happened to see that clumsiness in them. Arnie's birthday was approaching, and the family gathered in a circle to plan the event. But their words contained not only celebration, but also worry. They rejoiced that Arnie was lucky enough to welcome 18, but also worried whether he would depart on the day he turned 18. As the conversation dragged on, Ellen became impatient. Gilbert spoke up to scold her, but she responded listlessly.
Okay, Dad.
Ellen,
Sure thing, Dad.
will you cut it out?
Okay, Dad. Sure thing, Dad.
That's nice.
Stop it.
That's Dad.
Their father's death was their mother's eternal pain. She dared not face it, so she escaped the cruel reality through constant eating. And Arnie's words were undoubtedly a sharp knife. The shaking floor was like their teetering home, seemingly intact, but actually riddled with holes. Gilbert's father died in the basement. That was his mother's suffering, and also a pain Gilbert could not bear to look at directly. So he had to ask a friend to go in and repair the basement while he stood at the exit, gazing in. The cold wind blew through the tips of his hair. The shadow of his father's death penetrated his heart like an irresistible cold wave. He could not bear to face it, so he wandered aimlessly to disperse the sorrow at the bottom of his heart. Walking and walking, he inadvertently arrived at the riverside, and it was here that Gilbert saw Becky's RV parked by the bank. Becky also happened to notice him not far away. With just that one glance, the haze in Gilbert's heart quietly dissipated. The sunlight dispelled the cold, brushing across his face, and also planted the seed of love in the bottom of his heart. It seemed that only with Becky could he put down the heavy burdens on his body, toss the troubles and worries of life to the back of his mind, and search for his true self. Becky's grandmother also came out specially to welcome him warmly, bringing Gilbert delicious fruit. Warm sunlight shuttled between their temples. Wind and greenery weaved through the woods where warblers flew and grass grew. Gilbert transformed into a silent listener, listening to the conversation between Becky and her grandmother. They talked about so much, about this short journey, about each other's lifestyles, about everything in life. But to Gilbert's ears, these sounded like a distant place he could see, but never reach. He could only be trapped in this small town, like a bird locked by shackles, unable to fly. But Becky expressed that this place was also quite nice. Her eyes revealed a certain special sentiment. It was the beautiful appearance of a young girl's flower of love, quietly blooming. But for Becky, this journey was not only about self-redemption, but also about the helplessness of life. On the road, she indeed witnessed many different people and things, but sometimes rushing on the journey was for her parents, who had long since divorced. Life is like this, and existence is the same. No matter how brilliant a life is, behind it lies a bitterness that cannot be expressed. But the most important thing is what attitude we use to treat life's pain. In life, there are actually many medicines to cure bitterness: a breeze, sunlight, greenery, or even a sweet and delicious ice cream. Subsequently, they sat on the ground in the rice field, and the afterglow of the setting sun drifted down gently like flower petals, embellishing the earth as it gradually returned to silence. At this moment, Gilbert's heart became as calm as water. For the first time in his life, he felt that life could actually be so beautiful. But a sunset is a sunset not only because it is intoxicatingly beautiful, but because it is so brief. Everything he possessed now would vanish into the night as the sun went down and he returned home. He inevitably felt some reluctance to part, whether with the moment or the person before him. For Gilbert, that was the most important day of his life, and the night he slept most soundly. However, when the morning sun rose again, what he had to face was still that messy home. He had to take care of his brother, help out the family, and after all that was done, he still had to go to work at the grocery store. His day began in busyness and ended in busyness. But just as he was making deliveries, Mrs. Carver suddenly came to him anxiously. Mrs. Carver seemed very infatuated with Gilbert. Yesterday, she happened to pass by the river and saw the scene of Gilbert and Becky buying ice cream. With just that one look, she flew into a jealous rage, so she found him while he was delivering goods to sincerely declare her feelings. But Gilbert didn't understand. There were many excellent men in town, so why did she choose him?
I knew you'd always be there, because...
When Gilbert passed by Mrs. Carver's house, he suddenly saw several police cars stationed there again. He curiously asks bystanders what is going on. Only then does he learn that Mrs. Carver's husband met with a terrible misfortune. He drowned in a children's swimming pool. Gilbert couldn't help but feel suspicious about this. How could a grown man drown in a children's pool? Amidst his doubts, he couldn't help but think of Mrs. Carver. Was the man's death related to her? But just then, Arnie suddenly raised his hand and pointed out the window, interrupting Gilbert's train of thought. He looked back, and what came into view was a figure as brilliant as the stars. Every time he met Becky, Arnie would become incredibly excited, asking her to take him to play in the fields. Thus, ripples secretly rose in Gilbert's heart. The constraints of his family had made him lose the courage to pursue anything, but he also had his own yearnings. He yearned for unreachable love, yearned for a beautiful future. Ever since Becky barged into his life on that familiar small road, his heart gradually began to sprout. Becky was so unrestrained. She would swim in the river with her clothes on, and she would also encourage Gilbert to take the first step. The river water was dyed golden by the halo of the setting sun. The water ripples gently spread out, pushing their reflections to sway softly. It was hard to distinguish whether that violent heartbeat stemmed from their playfulness or something else. Becky is curious if Gilbert, whose entire life is confined to this town, has anything he actually wants for himself. Gilbert thought for a moment, but what came to mind were things that seemed related to him, but were actually unrelated to himself. He wanted his mother to lose weight, wanted his sister to grow up faster, wanted a miracle to descend upon his brother. Arnie, unexpectedly wandering off, disturbed Gilbert's fantasy, pulling his thoughts back to reality. He hurriedly searched for his brother, only to hear police cars whistling past on the road. He followed the sound, and halfway there saw a familiar figure. It was his brother. At this time, Arnie had climbed to the top of the water tower. He was fearless, like a Superman. But with the arrival of the police, his Superman dream, which existed only in fantasy, was bound to shatter, and the verbal warnings from the police followed one after another. Because the matter was too serious, Arnie was taken into the police car and locked in the detention center. This is a very realistic society. It will absolutely not extend forgiveness, pity, or sympathy to you just because you suffer from some kind of disorder. But the mother was unusually doting on her son. Even if her son made a mistake, she could not bear to see him suffer even a little bit. So, to bail Arnie out, Bonnie left the sofa for the first time, breaking away from this place that had imprisoned her for more than a decade. Driving that truck, which was crushed to a severe tilt, the family arrived at the police station, and Bonnie got out of the car. But what greeted her was not only fresh air, but also a steady stream of malicious gazes. Bonnie struggled to get to the police officer and implored him to release Arnie. The police officer wanted her to go through the process and handle the paperwork, but she was unwilling to stay there for even a moment. Worried that excessive emotional agitation would affect her health, the police had no choice but to let Arnie go. He ran excitedly to his mother, and his mother hugged him tightly in her arms. This day was supposed to be a moment of reunion for mother and son, but when Bonnie walked out of the police station, she found that a crowd had gathered at the door. They swarmed around, staring at Bonnie. Their eyes, cold as knives, seemed to pierce through everything. Under the gaze of bystanders, Bonnie dragged her heavy body, enduring the malice that was even harder to bear than her physical weight, and stepped onto the car, one step at a time. On the way back, the car no longer had the laughter and cheer from the trip there. It was replaced by a silence. Even the simple and active Arnie seemed to have something on his mind, leaning silently on his mother's shoulder. After that day, malice began to spread all around. In front of that quiet window of the wooden house, several children would often sneak over, looking at Bonnie with eyes as if they were looking at an ugly monster. Ellen really couldn't bear it anymore, so she angrily threw food out the window and drove the group of kids away. Because of this incident, Gilbert went to Becky's RV to pour out his heart. Looking at the footprints she had marked on the map, he couldn't help but be entranced again. And just as he was fully focused, Becky suddenly brushed back his hair and kissed him affectionately. The kiss caught Gilbert off guard. His heart began to tremble, and his soul began to surrender. Even though there was a world of difference between them, he still couldn't help his feelings. But Becky only loved his honest heart. Mr. Carver had passed away. Mrs. Carver held a funeral for her husband, and after the funeral ended, she prepared to leave this sorrowful place. Before leaving, she went to the convenience store to find Gilbert and reluctantly said goodbye to him. But when emotions ran deep, Becky's sudden appearance interrupted her train of thought and pulled her out of her sadness. Seeing the smile that instinctively rose on Gilbert's face, Mrs. Carver suddenly realized that perhaps it was truly time for her to leave. If Becky hadn't come from afar, and if Gilbert didn't have heavy burdens, perhaps they really could have been together forever. Just like the drifting heavy rain, which always descends hastily when the dust settles. When the rain clears and the sky clears, it will be the time for them to part. Just before parting, Becky decided to celebrate Arnie's 18th birthday, to witness this miracle regarding life. But while the family was preparing for the birthday, Arnie hid in the kitchen and stole the birthday cake. This scene angered Gilbert. He chased over and scolded his brother sternly. Subsequently, he dragged Arnie to the bathroom to wash him, but Arnie resisted desperately. After calming down, Gilbert's heart was suddenly occupied by self-blame and guilt. He didn't know how to face his brother, and he felt even more ashamed to face himself. Whenever he was trapped in a dilemma and couldn't escape, that girl as bright as sunshine was his best guide. But when he found Becky, he discovered that his brother had arrived there first. He could only stand silently under the big tree, watching them play and frolic in the lake draped in night. It wasn't until his family came looking that he realized it was time for him to leave. But his retreating figure was eventually noticed by Becky, so the emotions suppressed for a long time turned into a choked confession at this moment. He spoke of his guilt toward his brother, poured out his impulsiveness, and what responded to him was a warm embrace. It was also precisely because of Becky's comfort that Gilbert finally gathered the courage to ask his sister Amy about Arnie at the party the next day. The two brothers hugged tightly, reconciled as before. But Bonnie still took this to heart. Even though she wasted away on the sofa all day, she still worried about this home. She knew clearly that Gilbert had given everything for the family, so she couldn't bear to see the family have conflicts over anything, nor could she stand to see another person leave her side. But at the same time, she also knew that she was already their burden.
I never wanted to be a joke.
No joke, Miles.
I never wanted to be.
His mother's words touched Gilbert's heart. He was the eldest son of the family. His long-term devotion and rushing about made him shoulder the future of this family. He knew what his family needed, what they were thinking, and could read everyone's intentions between the lines. So naturally, he was clear about what his mother was worried about or afraid of, and for this, he brought Becky home. Gilbert seemed to be telling his mother in this way that he had found love, and had found a life that belonged to him, so she was not their burden. But such love was destined to be only a flash in the pan for Gilbert. Becky was leaving. She frankly spoke her true heart. "The days with you were the happiest times I have spent. Even though I have seen mountain birds and the sea, I have never seen a man so sincere." Gilbert heard her intention, but they were originally two different parallel lines. Even if they briefly intersected, they would eventually return to their respective tracks. Perhaps deeply moved by Gilbert's words, Bonnie actually left the sofa that had imprisoned her for over 10 years, and propping herself up with a cane, walked up the stairs with great difficulty. The family heard the sound and came, and everyone was astonished by this. They watched their mother climb the stairs step by step. The invisible shackles unconsciously loosened, and the prison of fate began to disintegrate. Every step Bonnie took at this moment was a struggle against life, and the destination she reached was no longer just that bed upstairs, but a brand new starting point. The family couldn't help but feel happy about this. It meant they would finally break free from the depressing past and welcome that hope-filled future. However, when Arnie went upstairs to see his mother, she would not wake up, no matter what. The sun set in the west. The autumn wind was desolate. Bonnie did not rush to a new life, nor did she go to a distant future. Instead, she stayed forever in the old times of the past, leaving the world silently, letting go of herself and letting go of her family. In order not to let their mother's death become a farce, Gilbert finally gathered the courage to go to that basement full of sadness and knocked the wooden beams to the ground one by one. They moved out all the furniture, severed all memories regarding this house, and then gently struck a match, igniting the entire wooden house. The fire spread wildly, burning this empty home and swallowing their mother's remains. The firelight reflected on their faces. It was unknown whether it was confusion or something else. But some things, some lives, can only be restarted by completely cutting them off. Although this fire took everything from them, it also allowed them to regain a new life. Under a different sky not long after, the wind still blew gently, and the young man still guarded that golden field. Only this time, he was not doing it for livelihood, but for his own love. What's Eating Gilbert Grape is often called a coming-of-age movie, but when you truly sit down and watch it, it is actually a story about trapped people, learning how to love, learning to forgive themselves, and also learning to let go. The life of Gilbert's family was like fragments randomly tossed into the wilderness by fate, poverty, pressure, silence, and a situation that could never be changed. Bonnie lost her vitality due to excessive self-blame and grief. Her obese body was like her unspeakable regret. Arnie remained forever in a child's world, innocent, fragile, yet requiring endless care. The sisters tried hard to grow up amidst the family chaos, but didn't know the direction. The whole home seemed hollowed out by time, with only a breath of warmth remaining. Gilbert was the beam holding the family together, but how old was he really? He was just a young man, longing to be loved and understood. He repeated the routine every day, taking care of Arnie, taking care of his mother, fixing the house, working. He carried the whole world on his shoulders without a single complaint, because the moment he spoke it out, the home might collapse. And a particularly moving part of this film is that smile that has learned silence on Gilbert's face. That is the expression of countless people trapped by fate, holding on, yet also slowly becoming numb. But Becky's appearance was like a drop of gentle rain falling on dry land. She just looked at him seriously once, and she saw the exhaustion in his eyes, and also saw the kindness and suffering in him. Gilbert let down his guard in front of someone for the first time. He could stop being strong and could just be an ordinary person. In that instant, it was like his life breathed oxygen for the first time. The love between them was not intense, but real enough to make one's heart ache, like the summer wind, making you suddenly realize that life can be more than just endurance. And the most touching part of the movie is Gilbert's love for his family. His gentleness toward Arnie was not a duty, but a guardianship from the bottom of his heart. He understood that Arnie would never grow up, yet he was still willing to hold Arnie's hand and walk toward all the dangers and misunderstandings in the world. Arnie's reliance on Gilbert was also grasping that one and only beam of light in the darkness, and the mother's silent farewell at the final moment of her life was more like a deep apology, a letting go that she finally gathered the courage to deliver to her children. In that moment, you suddenly understand that perhaps the bravest thing a mother can do in her life is to admit that she can no longer continue to love. At the end of the film, when Gilbert stood in the night illuminated by firelight, his eyes were no longer those of the boy carrying the whole family, but those of a person finally willing to walk toward his own future. He was not escaping, but had learned that love and responsibility need not be suffocating. They can also become a bridge to freedom.